I spent what ended up being an entire year studying for the LSAT, and at least half of it was a complete waste of time. My first cold diagnostics were in the low 150s, and I stayed there for far too long doing old LSAT prep textbooks. These were hand-me-downs from friends containing fake LSAT questions like LSAT for Dummies and Kaplan, and my scores just would not go up. Eventually, I started doing real, actual, official LSAT prep tests, and my scores still weren't going up. The explanations I found weren't helping. Taking more and more practice tests wasn't helping either. And eventually, I did every single LSAT prep test ever released. Eventually, this approach worked. I brought my scores from the low 150s to prep test scores in the mid to high 170s. But then I did something stupid on the day of my test that nearly destroyed my chances. I nearly bombed the LSAT because I hadn't properly simulated LSAT test day conditions. I took the LSAT back when it was only offered in person. It was a Saturday at 9 a.m. So I woke up at 6 a.m. so I'd be totally awake when the exam itself started. I figured to myself, protein is brain power, it's brain food. And so I assaulted my stomach with an entire can of tuna fish plopped on top of a bagel. I don't know what I was thinking, but my stomach was not ready for that first thing in the morning. I promptly threw up the entire thing and I started sweating because I was like, what am I going to do? How am I going to go forward with the LSAT in this state? But I left my apartment. I walked down to the subway in New York. I grabbed a banana from a fruit stand on the corner, and that was all I had in my system when I walked into the LSAT itself. And things ended up working out totally fine for me. I ended up getting my 175 on the test. Now, when it came to earning that 175, of course, it wasn't just about doing the LSAT prep textbooks. It wasn't just about taking official LSAT prep tests. I changed my approach to the exam using a formula, a framework that came to be known as the Socratic review method. And I'll share how the Socratic review method changed the game for me in just a moment. But first, I wanted to let you know that if you're looking for more, at LSAT Unplugged, we cover this framework in our courses to help you score in the 170s as well. You can check out the links below this video to find out more and to book a call with me and my team. We'd be glad to help you out. So here's what changed the game for me in my approach to the LSAT. A key part of the Socratic review method for me was transforming and translating one LSAT logical reasoning question type into another based on the stimulus, because it is not just about LSAT question stem type, whether you're dealing with a strengthened question or a weakened question or necessary assumption or flaw or parallel. The method of reasoning in the stimulus is also incredibly important, because if you don't understand the argument, you don't really know anything at all. And of course, the answer choices only make sense in the context of the stimulus. So moving on to the choices when you don't yet understand the stimulus is not going to help you. It will only further confuse you. Of course, understanding the question is only one piece of the puzzle. It's only about the accuracy. We've also got to look at your pacing and your endurance. So pacing involves getting through the questions in the time allotted. Now, in logical reasoning, all questions are equally valuable to you in terms of your score, but they are not all of equal difficulty. And so you want to make sure that you nail the easy questions. You don't devote more time to them than you actually need to, and you build up a time bank that you can then apply to the tougher questions later in the section. So I recommend to my students who are aiming for 170 plus that they aim to complete the first 10 questions in roughly 10, maybe 12 minutes max. Build up a time bank. They can then apply to those tougher questions, because questions 15 through 23 will typically be the toughest questions in the section. So not only did I get smart about my analysis of the questions, but I also got smart about my pacing. We also have to consider pacing in reading comprehension as well, because you've got 4 reading comp passages, roughly 7 questions associated with each. You don't want to get bogged down for too long on the passage text itself, because you want to allow sufficient time to solve the questions associated with the passage. So I'd recommend spending roughly 2.5 to 3 minutes on the passage text itself. Spend the rest of your time on the questions. And again, we want to be strategic about approaching the questions associated with the passage, just as we want to be strategic about how we allocate our time in a logical reasoning section. So in LSAT reading comp, I do recommend approaching the questions out of order by knocking out the general global questions first, So for example, you knock out your main idea questions first, your author's opinion questions first, passage organization questions first. These are your big picture, general, global, bird's eye view type of questions. The questions involving details and supporting examples, you can feel free to go back to the passage text to find the answers to those when you need to. And that way, of course, you'll be building your understanding of the passage as you go, knocking out the lowest hanging fruit first. Anyway, folks, that's all for now. Feel free to book a call, link below. I'll be glad to help. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.